Did you guys know that the Disney cruise ships had stage shows? This should come as no surprise. Live entertainment is a staple of cruise lines. I mean, what else are you supposed to do while you're cooped up on a ship in the middle of the ocean? Walk around, look at stuff, get sick from your fellow passengers, daydream about getting kidnapped by a misanthropic submarine captain with crippling depression? That last one's just me? Oh, whatever. Disney is no stranger to putting on fun little shows for the whole family. You just have to look at the live entertainment in the parks for proof of that. So, it shouldn't surprise you that they've done review-style shows and even straight adaptations of some of their popular films. And yet, I was still surprised when I learned about this particular show. Twice Charmed, an original twist on the Cinderella story. This little piece of obscurity was performed on the Disney Magic in 2005, coinciding with Cinderella's 55th anniversary. The book was penned by Michael Weiner and Alan Zachary, known for writing the music for the musical First Date, but perhaps better known for their television work, composing music for Once Upon a Time, and, more recently, High School Musical, the series. While virtually unknown to most fans, Twice Charmed proved popular enough to get a cast album and even a revival in 2016. But what even is it in the first place? Well, only one way to find out. Let's watch the thing and see what it's all about. The show opens with a brief recap of the film, for all 2 people in the audience who don't already know it, before going into the first song, all because of a shoe.
When she ran from the ball, she gave no reason why, so I searched all the land, but came up high and dry, till a dish made in rags gave the slipper a try. At last my search was through, all because of a shoe.
This is basically a victory lap for the events in the first film. All of the kingdom is amazed at Cinderella becoming a princess and marrying the prince. The king is psyched over primogeniture being secured. But of course, not everyone is so pleased. Lady Tremaine, Anastasia, and Drusilla stand to the side, salty and bitter over the situation, as you'd expect. Look, you 3 should be grateful that you got out better than you did in the original story. Side note, I have watched through this show multiple times, and I still have trouble figuring out which sister is supposed to be which. Their hair colors and outfit colors aren't matching what sisters they're supposed to be, which was an interesting choice given that all the other outfits are fairly faithful to the movie. Also, and I know this is really pedantic, but I have never been crazy about Cindy's old dress design. I can see what they were going for. Her sleeves are pointed upwards like in the film, but it just looks really cheap. I know there was a big outcry when her newer dress debuted in the parks several years ago, but it's basically better in every way. Anyways, back to the show. In case you haven't picked up on it, this is actually a sequel to the original movie. It was the mid-2000s, the reign of the dreaded Disney sequels. For those of you too young to remember, it was basically as ubiquitous as the live-action remakes are now. Every movie that was somewhat profitable got a sequel, regardless of whether or not it fit. For fuck's sakes, even Hunchback of Notre Dame got a sequel. This wasn't even the first Cinderella sequel Disney made. The naughties were not a good time, I'll just leave it at that. So Anastasia and Drusilla are mulling over what could have been, but Lady Tremaine tells them that it's over, and that they should all move on. Until...
Greetings and salutations, ladies.
We're introduced to Franco de Fortunato, the wicked fairy godfather, an original character created just for this show. He's come in to cut them a deal in the form of our next song, It's Never Too Late.
It's never too late to turn your life around and run someone else's life into the ground. No need to wish upon a star, 'cause I've got a magical repertoire. There's so much devastation we'll create.
Basically, he'll let them go back in time and stop the whole shoe thing from happening. In return, they gotta make sure Cinderella and the prince don't get happily ever after. And to be honest, I see a huge missed opportunity here. If you're familiar with like the castle shows and things like that, you know that you can often see characters mixing from different movies. Wouldn't it have been cooler to see another Disney villain in this place? Can't you see someone like Hades or Ursula in this role, being kind of a chaotic neutral trickster? If only this had come out a few years later. Dr. Facilier in this role would have been amazing. They agree to the Faustian bargain, and Frank turns back time to the day of the fitting. Put a pin in it. The Duke and the Prince are going around the kingdom while the latter is daydreaming about how perfect the girl fitting the shoe is. And Cinderella's thinking the exact same thing too. Lady Tremaine comes in and tries to tell Cinderella to give her the glass slipper, but she finally stands up for herself, saying she's going to get her happily ever after. Not that it stops her sisters from attacking her and snatching it away from her. Lady Tremaine is still smart enough to know that she might just get recognized and the whole shoe thing is kind of pointless. So she makes Franco shrink her down to the size of a mouse. Oh, and there's been a song going on this entire time. In a moment.
In a moment, in a moment, we will all embark on a journey to a brand new neighborhood. In a moment, your life can change
During the fitting, Lady Tremaine breaks the other shoe and tells the Duke to take her and her daughters to the palace, so the prince can decide between them. Presuming they've been through the entire kingdom, I guess they didn't have very many options. Meanwhile, Cinderella's talking to Jacques and Gus, yeah, they're here too, sad over having her hopes and dreams dashed. They think to call Fairy Godmother, but they're too small for her to hear them.
Perhaps the prince was never supposed to find me because I'm just not worth being found. There, child.
Well, that was easy. She brings them all up to human size, including the mice. Fairy Godmother tells Cinderella that she doesn't need to be given a pretty dress or the glass slippers, because the prince loves her for her, going into the next song, Inside Out.
Let what's inside out, and the symphony will play every time that you smile. No fancy pearls, no diamond rings, take the place of a heart that's true.
And I should probably take a moment to talk about the songs. They range from good to just kind of meh. I really like how In a Moment changes with all the new verses and singers. But I'm not too crazy about Inside Out. That one's just kind of generic and bland. And a little too much of it is given to the mice and their not great singing techniques. But overall, they're serviceable, and some of them are actually pretty catchy and fun. I guess you shouldn't be expecting Broadway quality show tunes from a production like this. Finding Nemo the Musical notwithstanding, those songs slap and I will hear nothing to the contrary. The prince is more than disappointed to find out that he didn't get the girl he danced with. And as soon as he sees Anastasia and Drusilla, he hightails it out of there to go look for her himself. Put a pin in it. We get into our next song, Chasing a Dream, as he runs away and gossip spreads around the kingdom about it.
I'm chasing a dream, yes, I'm chasing a dream. I must follow my heart, come what may. I don't make a fuss,
Won't you please come with us?
I'm afraid, Duke, that's not meant to be. I'm chasing a dream, and this dream's my destiny.
Was this song written under a bet to see how many times you could fit the word dream into a single chorus? He spends 2 weeks searching for her before he's ready to give up. So much for the whole one true love thing. If you really cared about her, you'd look for at least 3. The king throws yet another ball so that the prince will finally just settle and pick a wife. I mean, come on, that royal bloodline isn't going to continue itself. Who cares how much taxpayer money you're wasting to get there? It's a black and white themed ball, and Lady Tremaine makes Frank turn her daughters into the belles of the ball. But evil magic can only go so far.
I believe it to be a great force of attraction.
Whoa, bad touch, Anastasia. Or Drusilla, whichever one you're supposed to be. All the sequences reminding me of is the masquerade in Schumacher's Phantom. Because why be bright and colorful when you can be grayscale? Before the prince can choose his bride, Cinderella crashes the party, proclaiming that she is the one he fell in love with. Lady Tremaine puts her down, like any abuser would, but the prince quickly shuts her up.
I wish to hear what she has to say.
Your Highness, do not be deceived by this common girl's lies.
Lady Tremaine, when I want your advice, I'll ask for it.
God, that's satisfying. She sings the last original song, Believe in Me, which seems to be the best known song from this show. It's a pretty ballad, nothing more, nothing less.
I simply believed what my eyes could see, and I forgot to believe in me.
The prince picks her to be his bride, surprising no one, which means only one thing for Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters. Slavery! I'm not even joking. Frank curses them to do his chores presumably forever. Given what these three put poor Cindy through, I'm gonna call this a very karmic retribution. Frank leaves to go put other Disney villains through the same thing. Cinderella and the prince get married, and they all live happily ever after. Now, let's rewind for a second, replay those pins. Frank turns back time to the day of the fitting. He hightails it out of there to go look for her himself. Yeah, you might recognize that as the plot to Cinderella 3, aka the Disney sequel that's better than it has any right to be. The show premiered in 2005, Cinderella 3 came out in 2007, a whole 2 years later. I don't know if the filmmakers were even aware of this show's existence, but that's an amazing coincidence if they're not. However, the opposite is certainly true, because when the show was brought back in the Disney Dream in 2016, it was changed to fit the plot of Cinderella 3. Not major changes, the basic plot is the same, but a few details were tweaked. Anastasia gets to have the glass slipper and gets to be the one the prince chooses initially. Lady Tremaine also hypnotizes the prince into thinking she was the one she danced with. Sadly, we don't get the best redemption arc in film history, so a major downgrade there. Before the prince moves back to the palace to settle, Jock and Gus catch up to him and sing the At the Ball song from the film.
For at the ball, at the ball, at the ball, at the ball, Cinderella was a maiden at the ball.
We also get a new song, Perfect Fit, where girls are fawning over the prince to try on the shoe.
When I have to help me work this out,
I can't enough if my toes were gone.
just one more time you'll see that I'm your perfect. You're perfect.
These songs exist, and that's all I have to say about them. Cindy does get a new wedding dress too, clearly inspired by the then recently released live-action film. But besides from those changes, the show was basically the same. It's a toss-up as to which version is superior. I think I prefer the old version because it doesn't have some of the plot contrivances brought on by the new elements. But the differences are hardly that noticeable, so you'd be good either way. But that was Twice Turned, and it's not bad. Yeah, it's kind of cheesy, it's kind of silly, and it doesn't really add much to the Cinderella mythos. But it's cute and harmless. There are some decent songs, the actors are clearly giving it their all and having a great time. And for young kids, this is a fun theater experience. If I saw this playing at the parks or on a cruise I was on, I'd go watch it. And if you're curious as to what these shows are like, you can find recorded versions of them right here on YouTube. So, check them out and decide for yourself. If you want to learn more about the Disney Cruise Line musicals and what goes into them, I recommend checking out Disney Dan's video on the Toy Story musical. He does a great job explaining how they work and what purpose they serve, so go check that out. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think of Twice Charmed? Did any of you out there get to see the show in person? Are there any other Disney movies you want to see get this treatment? Whatever you're thinking, let me know down in the comments. And let me know if you like this kind of linear riffing video, because there's plenty more out there that I could do. But that's all the time I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.